Hey, hello. For this video, I'm gonna try to answer a viewer question I got. What I'll be doing is creating this stage, this wooden stage at the top of the map here. And that relates to this question I got about the stone tiling all over the map here. I was wondering how I made it, so I'll show you how I went about doing that. It started off originally, I was doing a painting here, and this is just as far as I got on the painting, so I wasn't very happy with it. I scrapped it, and I probably painted over it. But I liked the tile pattern I painted at the bottom, so I flattened it out in Photoshop, and I just turned it into a pattern like this. And from that, I created a thin band, and then from that thin band, I created a sort of an outline pattern, like you can see here. Then I took that flat pattern, I rotated it 45 degrees, crushed the vertical, and I made sure it would I made sure it would tile seamlessly. Now, I'm imagining that this is probably not something that most people would want to do, starting off with a painting. So what I'll be doing here is starting off with some pixel art I created, which is probably going to be more useful. So I'll be using the same wooden tile pattern that I used at the top of these stone walls. So let me just open my tile set here. Alright, so here's a new file. Some of those tiles, those wooden tiles. I'm just going to make some room here and increase the canvas size. So after I've spread all of this out, there's obviously way too much repetition going on right now, so I'm gonna just zoom in here and try to cut down on that. Just moving some shapes around, covering some stuff up. Alright, so I think I've gotten rid of most of the repetition, or at least enough of it. Yeah, that's looking good. So I'm gonna rotate this texture slightly. Let's just cut off those spaces at the side. And now I'm gonna try to line up the line in the corner here with another point where the line intersects the bottom. Just about there. I'll crop it. And I'll do the same on the vertical. So some other point where the line matches up. So that should be pretty close to being able to tile seamlessly now, but it's not going to be exact. Just going to resize this to better match up with a 48 by 48 grid. Shrank it a bit. Alright, so now I'm going to offset the image. Just typing in half of its dimensions in here. So now you can see a line running up the middle and across the center. That's pretty close. Close enough that it's very easy to fix. So my own preference would be to just draw over this manually, but there is a quicker solution as well. Yeah, that's reasonably good. Alright, now when I go to fix this part over here, that's a pretty severe offset. I'm actually going to exaggerate it even further and just go right with it. Just imagining that maybe this wooden board has become warped or damaged in some way. Alright, so I'll show you the quicker way of doing this sort of thing. Just copy a chunk of texture here. Delete the edges, and it's all done. Alright, so I'm just checking it here by duplicating the texture off to the right. Looks like it matches. Okay, so I'm going to copy that texture and save it over on my tile set here. But before I get around to using it, I'm going to lighten it a bit, just so it's not exactly the same color as the other wooden texture I used on the map. A bit lighter, maybe a bit more yellow. That should look good. Now you can try incorporating other textures into this. I didn't end up doing anything like that here, but it's an option that's there. I would usually do this kind of thing later on while making a map. Alright, let's load this up into the city map here. Let's find a layer to put this on. Okay, I've got snapping enabled, so these things should just click together properly. So at first I'm just going to fill the space with the texture before figuring out the actual shape I want the object to be. So I've just merged them all into one layer now, and I'm going to put all of that into a folder. Let's call it stage. Okay, I'll mask the layer, and let's carve out a shape. Let's carve out a shape for this theater. Should be plenty of room there for an audience. Not totally sure what I'm doing at this point, but I do know that I want there to be some stairs over by this green-roofed building. That's where the entrance, or the stairway up onto the stage is going to be. Just going to use a bit of a variant of the pattern here. For a bit of design interest. Probably need to exaggerate some of those dark lines a bit. I think it got lost in the rotation. Yeah, that looks a bit better. Going to give some depth to this stage now. Alright, let me just change the tone and the color of this. Yeah, that matches up better now. Now I still have to add cast shadows to this, so it looks okay for now. It's still going to get a bit darker. Gonna bring in some other shapes here. This pole is probably too big, but if I shrink it down, it should fit in well. I'm gonna take a fragment of a market stand I built earlier and use it to construct the stairs. So there's a pretty good edge here. This should work out perfectly. And there we have our stairs. So the last thing to do will be to get that railing in there before adding in some shadows. Just going to match up the color here. And here's the railing. A big part of this is just cannibalizing shapes, sort of repurposing very simple shapes. Got the angle wrong there. So the last thing I'm going to do for this railing is just duplicate the layer, lock the transparency, and I'm going to paint in a highlight on the side that's facing the light. Oh, I missed a spot here. Just beneath the stairs. And I'm wondering if I want to extend these posts all the way down to the ground. Well, I decided against it. It's basically all completed now, other than adding in the 2 different kinds of shadow. So first I'll add some ambient occlusion, then I'll do the cast shadows after that. Although I'm noticing now I made a mistake. These cracks in here, these boundaries between the boards, the angle should be a lot more severe, so unfortunately I have to change them all. It was sort of contributing to the stage looking like it was out of perspective. Yeah, here we go. So with those lines twisted a bit more to the side, the stage looks better. It's in perspective now. So I'm just going to paint in a quick collision map for the stairs. Something like this. What I'll probably do is add a bunch of objects just beneath the stairs and to the right, maybe a few barrels or something. That way I don't have to worry about whether the character is going to show up properly beneath the overlay layer. If that doesn't make any sense, don't worry about it. Okay, so I'm adding some ambient occlusion shadows. And the way I typically do this is I build up several different, usually very severely dark layers like this. And I tone down the transparency quite a lot. So it allows you to be very, basically it allows you to be very sloppy with where you place the shadows, and it still will work out. Although you do have to have some very sharp edges in some places, like right on the boundary there, for example. I don't really have very much to say about this, so I'll just let the video play through as I'm working on it. So I've moved on to a second layer here. I'm gonna try to pick up on some more finer lines. I'll tone that layer down and merge it with the layer below. That should be a bit of an improvement. Alright, just gonna play around with the opacity a bit to make sure it matches up with the rest of the map, and then I'll move on to the cast shadows. Just gonna copy that shadow. But I want to offset this part of it because it's on the raised platform. Sorry, I don't have much in the way of commentary as I'm doing this. It's mostly just painting in shapes. And there we go. That should be it finished off. Well, I'll just add some shadow in here at the bottom of the stairs. And that should be it. Probably still want to add things like tables, chairs, other random objects. Maybe a flag or a banner between those two posts, that sort of thing. But the general shape is in there. Anyhow, I'll bring this back up from the beginning of the video. Got a few random plants growing off of the stairs. Actually, they shouldn't be there, but... Well, that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful, and thank you for watching.